Happy Halloween. I'm saying that because I probably won't see you before Friday. We had a bash yesterday. Yes. See, I'm looking out there to see my bingo people. There were over 60 people in that hall yesterday. It's unusual that we get that big of a group. So yeah, that supports our ability to be here. So we send them love. We so appreciate them. And I wanted to mention that it takes some setup, to make that space look as spooky as it does. Have you seen how spooky it is? And so the team this week was Don and I, and Natalie was here too, yeah. And I want to say, while I'm mentioning Tali, that we now have a clean water cooler. Yay, Tali, thank you so much. Yes, do, please. So I do have some slides of yesterday too that I thought you should see, because there's our lovely Donna. Kitty cat there in the middle. And for those of you who haven't met Ruth, she's the bingo manager. I'm telling you, she makes it happen. So very grateful. So gratitude is where I want to start this morning. Gratitude. I'm so grateful. I am so grateful. I think there's a song that goes like that. Something like that. I'm grateful. And then there's Laura. Laura's not here today, but Laura, and there's a fuller picture of the kitty cat, the blonde kitty cat. And I don't remember their names. They're not here today, but Mary Alice and Katie, they had too much fun. Yeah, so the title for the talk today is Homecoming. And it's that time of year, right? It's fall, it's Halloween. And what kind of memories come up for you? Or what is it that you love the most about this time of year? I was thinking that it has always been my favorite time of year. Probably more so when I was experiencing the place where I was experiencing the season, because I loved the leaves, the colors of the leaves falling, the leaves being raked by someone else, and jumping in the leaves. I love that. So that's one thing I miss about our desert. But we love it, don't we? I can tell you're thrilled about that. So those things, those memories and those things that are outside of us they are representing home inside. Does that make sense? Because what I really want to get around to today is there is so much we experience in the outer, and yet home is really inside, always. So we can come home any moment. So I want to go back to my first experience of homecoming, and maybe you'll be able to relate to some of these experiences. Think about what it felt like to be with safe people, and maybe that was your family when you were young, especially when you got scared at Halloween, or if there was a problem at school. It was good to be able to go home and get hugs and be loved. Homecoming. When I was 14, no, when I was 12, my brother was 14. His name was Rick. And And over a period of 3 months, one summer, he got sick with a rare form of cancer called lymphoblastoma. And he passed in that short period of time. And he was my buddy. And I had never experienced death. And I'm grateful today that the aspect of that experience that I'm grateful for was the fact that I knew. Nobody told me, I didn't read anything. I knew that since my brother died, that he was still somewhere in existence, in spirit, in truth. So at a very young age, I knew that spiritual truth that we aren't this body, that there's so much more, and that I continue to feel that connection with him today. So that is for me a sense of homecoming, the memories of Rick and the knowing that he is still very alive, very present. My next experience of homecoming, I like to think of as the 12-step programs, because I went through a period, late teens, well into my 20s, when I had a pretty serious eating disorder. Ended up finally in a treatment center, a hospital for addictive diseases, and then spent another 3 months in sort of a rehab after that. So the only reason that I ended up in the 12-step programs was because my older brother, Jeff, who was 2 years older than Rick, had found it from his addiction with alcohol and other drugs. And I literally, when I saw the success for him, I thought to myself, there has got to be something like that out there for me and my problem. Because at that point, nobody knew. And so I looked it up and I found Overeaters Anonymous. And, you know, there's an anonymous for just about anything. You're struggling with something, there's anonymous for it. And so I came home to the 12-step programs, and I spent many, many years between, sometimes it's great just to go to an AA meeting, because addiction is addiction is addiction, they say. So we're not working on a specific issue because that's just the symptom. What we're trying to do, as they say in the 12-step programs, is we're trying to fill a God-sized hole within us. Home. The next experience of, I know we got some like ringing or something somewhere. Anywhere. Okay. I don't think it's here, because we would hear it, I think, through there. Anyway, the next experience was unity, coming into unity. And some people talk about, and maybe this was your experience too, coming home to unity and sitting in the back for the first weeks or months and wiping some tears away. There's a sense of love and acceptance and peace here that I hadn't experienced, and not physically here, but in the unity, whatever unity space. And then, of course, meeting Barry was a homecoming for me. I had been in many, many, many relationships as a young adult and an adult. And when Barry and I met, it was one of those things, like, when you know. And that felt like home for me. And yet, all of these things, again, are representations in the outer of what is in the inner and accessible at any moment, at any time. I love from the Bible, and I'm not even going to quote where it is. It's just, we're in this world, not of this world. Can you get a sense for that? I am in this world, not of this world. Together, I am in this world, not of this world. And so it is. So one of the things that I wanted to do today, well, share, of course, this Ram Dass slide, which I couldn't resist. I just wanted some graphic that had his quote on it. We're all just walking each other home. But when I saw the kitty cat and the pigs, I'm like, that's the best one. I hope you feel that here at Unity. And I know you don't necessarily want to go home anytime soon, but that we're here for this part of your path. We're walking together during this part of your path home. A couple of weeks ago, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I did a talk on Unity's 5 principles. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper with that today. And so I wanted to start out with a short video by Ellen Davenport, who actually wrote a book for Unity on the 5 principles. And so here's
I'm Rev Natalie Davenport. I'd like to tell you today a little bit about Unity teachings. Even some old-timers have trouble explaining what we believe and teach. This is a simple introduction. Unity teachings can be expressed through 5 fundamental principles. These are not ideas Unity invented. They're woven through all the world's faith traditions. We know the co-founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, read widely about other religions, and they pulled together the threads that ran through all of them. Hence the name, Unity. It was their great-granddaughter, Connie Fillmore, who consolidated the teachings into 5 brief statements when she was leading Unity a century after its founding. These 5 principles are spiritual laws. That means they're always in effect and they work for everyone. But they are deceptively simple, and don't call them basic. You could spend a lifetime trying to understand and apply these 5 principles every day. The first is that God is all there is, present everywhere. It's all God. That sounds happy and positive until you start to think about everything happening on the planet. War, crime, terrorism, loss, and grief. How could God be in all of that? It's a question theologians have wrestled with for a few thousand years now. In Unity, we teach that God's presence is within us and around each of us in any circumstance. If we look closely, we will see evidence of divine love and compassion everywhere. The second principle may be even more challenging. It is that all human beings are divine in their essence. The same spirit that was in Jesus is in each one of us. That's what he was trying to tell us when he said we could do everything he could do and more. It's not always easy to see the divine in other people when their behavior is shocking. But who could look at a newborn child and believe it was on earth for anything but love? Sometimes humans do lose their way, but our spiritual nature allows us to learn and grow through a lifetime. Those first 2 principles are about the nature of God and humanity. The other 3 are about what we do with this information. If God is all there is, and we're a part of that divine presence, then how does that show up in our lives? The third principle is that our thoughts have creative power. The Buddha said, all that we are is the result of what we thought. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore used the power of thought to heal themselves of lifelong ailments. The power of thought extends beyond healing to everything: prosperity, relationships, our sense of worthiness, our expectations for life. So we watch our thoughts. We're careful to stay positive. Now, that doesn't mean we squelch our feelings or become afraid that a single negative thought will ruin our lives. It's just a way to keep aligning ourselves with the spiritual law that says we get what we expect. We reap what we sow. What goes around comes around. In unity, we say, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. The fourth principle is simply prayer and meditation. That's the time we spend each day remembering who we truly are, that we are divine beings immersed in the presence of God, and that divine presence is in every situation in our lives. Some people pray by speaking to God. Others align with the force field of love and intelligence that is the universe. Either way, prayer comes from a consciousness of our oneness with all things. Fifth, then, is what we do on a daily basis. The fifth principle says knowing these spiritual principles is not enough. We must live the truth we know, put it into practice. It's important to notice that taking action this way comes last. We don't leap into action until we have invoked the first four principles. Do I believe God is in this situation? Can I see the divine in all the people involved? What thoughts am I holding that might be manifesting in this reality? Have I prayed about it? Then we come to principle 5, to live the truth we know. None of us live from our spiritual nature all the time, but the potential is there. Principle 5 simply says we keep trying, we keep practicing. So to recap these 5 principles, God is all there is, humans are divine, our thoughts have creative power, prayer aligns us with a presence greater than ourselves, and we live this truth by taking inspired action as we are guided. Nearly everything you'll hear or read in Unity comes under the umbrella of the 5 principles. There's a short way to remember them called the 5-finger method. God is, I am. I think, I pray, I live. You can learn more about these principles on unity.org and also find a book and other publications about them. Look for links in the description below. I hope these 5 principles help guide you on your spiritual journey. Blessings to you.
Yeah, there's always a commercial, isn't there? Sometimes I remember to cut them out ahead of time. Not in this instance. So one thing she mentioned at the beginning, and I thought that was just so well done. And now all of you know the 5 principles, right? Pop quiz. No. What I love is remembering that this is not specific to unity, that it's ancient wisdom, that it is, or what we might call a perennial philosophy, perennial being, it pops up in every good philosophy or teaching or religion, these principles pop up. So, and the other thing I'd like to stress is it's not a requirement to believe any of that. That we're always offering simply an invitation, because we believe and we've seen in our lives that they are tools really to be transformed, to have our lives and our world before us transformed. Or, as it said in the Bible, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, the new thought. So I have a quote here from August Berg. Our teaching is a science, an art, a technique that you can learn and that will enable you to have a fuller enjoyment of the good things of life. Some of you are familiar with this book, written by Linda Martella-Whitsitt, How to Pray Without Talking to God. And I'd like to spend just a minute on that word "to," because Ellen mentioned it. She said, there are people who pray to God, And then there are people who pray from the awareness of God within ourselves and everywhere. And that was said kind of quickly, and I want to dwell there a minute because some people see that title, How to Pray Without Talking to God, and they say, well, why would you want to pray without talking to God? But the key word there is to. It's learning, and this is what we do in unity when we pray. We are, and again, it doesn't matter if you pray to God, that's fine. But this practice of praying from an awareness is consciousness raising. And I don't know about you, but that's what I want. It's consciousness raising, it's consciousness shifting, it's transforming my mind. So I bring this up today because there's a section in here that I want to share with you this morning. So this woman is a unity minister, Linda Martella Whitsitt, and we've had a connection throughout the years, and she has done a lot of prayer teaching in terms of how to pray from that consciousness and that awareness of God. So Eric Butterworth said, prayer is not a means of arousing God to action, but the process of waking up from our drowsiness. Anybody drowsy today? So we can see ourselves. So here she tells a story. During one of the longest 6-month stretches of my life, my husband was laid off from the best paying position he'd ever held. Our mortgage depended upon his salary. We sold our home and downsized immediately. Within weeks of our move, the Unity Church I was serving as the associate pastor fired me for insubordination when I would not sign a waiver of liability insurance for spiritual counseling I conducted within the scope of my pastoral responsibilities. And since the ministerial training program that I had already begun several months earlier required me to be an associate pastor within a spiritual community, my ministerial training was also suspended. Overshadowing all of this, though, was a pressing concern about my son, who was in Iraq. Adrian, a U.S. Marine, had deployed with other first-in troops. And on March 20th, 2003, the news came that the U.S. troops had mobilized to occupy Iraq. Adrian provided logistic support to a reconnaissance unit. He was a moving target in a Humvee while his comrades convoyed in armored tanks. Thankfully, I did not know this at the time, nor did I realize Adrian and his unit were being ambushed nightly along the treacherous route to Baghdad. I did, however, watch the news from morning till night in search of word about his unit from an embedded reporter. At the convergence of all of this, I was given the gift of spiritual counseling from a highly regarded professional. Eager for some support, I walked in, sat down, and started spewing all my woes. Do you ever do that? Crying, worrying, wanting someone to say, oh, poor baby. Instead, I was slapped across the face, spiritually speaking. When the counselor finally remarked, he said, so you don't really believe there's only one presence and one power. You don't really believe that you are divine and therefore able to walk through the uncertainties of this time in confidence. You don't really believe that you and your son are divine love, inseparable, whether he's in Iraq or off planet. Instead of running away, as I felt inclined to do, I remained rooted in my seat. Instead of receiving the counselor's words as an attack, I swiftly shifted into alignment with the truth. He was illuminating. I sat up straight, wiped the tears away from my cheeks, and whispered, thank you. I left that session prepared to seek my next rightful place of service and to practice oneness in meditation twice each day in front of a photograph of my son. I received a gift from spiritual counseling in the form of a strong reminder to return to the principles. These principles had been easy to uphold during times of stability and easy to abandon when I felt overwhelmed by shifting conditions. Some of you may have been the victim of telling me that you had this problem or that problem, and hearing me say, well, you know, we all have problems. And that's not very empathic. That's not very compassionate. So I apologize if I have said that to you. However, it's true, isn't it? Everybody's got something. So we've actually studied this. We had our prayer team study this book, and our board studied it together. And I remember when we were as a board, it's different, a little bit different board than what we have today. But I remember coming to that point and asking them, board members, so how do you want me to respond when you come to me with this problem or that problem? Do you want me to say, so you don't really believe there's only one presence and one power, God, present everywhere? You don't really believe you're the essence of that goodness and that God that's everywhere present? And I'll tell you, just about every one of them said, no, I don't want that. I want, I want some compassion. I think we needed both. We need both. We need the human in us and the human in the other person to acknowledge the struggle, right? That life is not always easy. Sometimes it is darn magnificent. And sometimes it just feels like we're keeping our heads above water. So I wanted to just look at the 5 principles in the awareness that this is theory here. These 2, believe it or not, these are the principles that we say that we believe. And they're kind of airy-fairy, right? I mean, when you're walking the walk throughout the day of dishes and, headaches and some problem with the car, or the dog is sick, when you're walking through all of that, there's always an invitation that it will be easier if I come back into this awareness. There's nothing magical there. There's only, I either believe it or I don't, or I kind of believe it, or I believe it sometimes, or I forget. How many of you forget? I forget. Yeah. And then, so we have the theory here, and then the last 3 are all practice steps. So these are the invitations to the practice of what it is that we say that we believe. Coming home to God within us. It's not really a hole. There's no empty. There doesn't have to be an empty feeling there when we practice the awareness that we are all of those good things, no matter who we yelled at, or what mistake we made, or they're going to be mistakes, and And actually, that's where the word sin comes from, simply missing the mark. We don't believe in sin. You are free. You are loved. You are love. And this time of year, as we celebrate weird things like Halloween, we also celebrate gratitude and Thanksgiving. And we celebrate that sort of shift that has occurred in the travel of the sun across. Did you notice that there's a shift in, where the shadows were a month or so ago and where they are now? So I want to close with a quote that came from the Science of Mind magazine, Centers for Spiritual Living. There's a different slant to the daylight this time of year in whichever hemisphere you find yourself. Without benefit of the calendar, we can identify the season, or certainly our ancestors could, by being closely attuned to such things. Yet the light flows, now as at any other time, from the same source, our nearby star. It shines on all alike. Similarly, divine power has never judged us or isolated us from itself or each other. If it has felt so, our forgiveness of self and surrender into the givingness of spirit can arrive with the next intention we set. And I affirm I now lay aside every doubt or fear and gladly enter into a newness of life. And so it is. I'm going to do a short meditation. So I invite you to take a few deep breaths. As always, we say, so the message is what it is. Take what you want, leave the rest. And that which you want, hold dearly. In that space where you sometimes feel an emptiness, and set an intention. When you next time you feel that feeling of emptiness, to remember, yeah, I have these principles. I may not remember them, but I know that there is truth, that I am love, and that there is an energy that is more than I am. Yes, I'm part of it, but it's so much more than I am. It's in that cool breeze in the morning and the evening, and yes, the hot air too. It's in those hues, those colors that are changing early in the morning and in the evening, the sunrise, and sunset. And on your walk, when you choose to get out in nature, because it has the potential to really ground us. As we listen for the birds out beyond all the other noise, there's nature calling us. There's our homecoming. Our intention when we feel lonely, empty, to acknowledge that and to know it's not true. We're not empty. We're not alone. And even reach out in those moments if you need help to remember. So now as we go into the rest of this week and to that scary Halloween Friday, we walk with confidence because we know the truth of who we are. We are loved.